Hey everyone, it's Joe Lyons here in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and Jackie here from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Jackie and I were just chit-chatting. So I told Jackie, but before we started here, I was really excited because Azayas, we had just finished getting our intro to AutoHotkey, building GUIs in AutoHotkey course up on Udemy. And I wanted to discuss some of the stuff, and I think it'd be an interesting dialogue to see, because Jackie hasn't heard really any of the stuff that I was going to bring up here as the main selling points. Now, the course, by the way, is an amazing course. Isaiah did an amazing job, and of course, I helped with the outline and some of the ideas and structure, and then I built the quizzes and gave assignments. So I'm the mean guy, but it's great having someone who actually knows GUIs, because I just don't know GUIs, and he did a great job. But when I was first talking to him about it, I was telling him we need to create this intro video to kind of give people an overview of to get them to buy the course and have an overview. So he was initially thinking about like talking about what was in the course. And I thought, what we really need to do, because the vast majority, there's people like this that are listening to us, right, that are already in AutoHotkey. You guys are sold on AutoHotkey anyway, right? If you're interested in GUIs, you're gonna probably be very interested in this course because it's a great course. But what I wanted to do is to convince people that aren't familiar with AutoHotkey that they should be using AutoHotkey, as further GUIs. And what got really interesting was I said, look, to me, and I was, chit-chatting with Isaiah via chat back and forth. And I said, what do you think the biggest unique selling proposition of our course is, with AutoHotkey for using for GUIs? And so he mentioned several things, like the speed of GUIs and the simplicity of typing, in AutoHotkey. He listed a lot of really good things. To me, the number one thing of why people should choose, AutoHotkey for creating GUIs, it had nothing to do with AutoHotkey. It's the fact that AutoHotkey is really a wrapper to the GUI windows, like inside Windows, right? We are just using their GUIs, and Chris, and other people over time have simplified the code that we need to write to wrap those GUIs. And so it's really, really easy, and yet they are by far the most proven GUI system on the planet. More people have ever used these things and are familiar with them. Jackie, would you think that's at least one of the top reasons?
Yeah, I'd say sure, because it's familiar Windows stuff. As years go by, if they keep their looks, they'll probably start looking like older type GUIs. But again, you can theme them, you can do all kinds of different stuff. So yeah, I think you're right.
As a marketing gimmick, I was going to say we could actually kind of leverage, it's good often to bring up a negative and use it as a strength, right? Say like, look, they could be a little boring and look a little old. However, again, they're the most, proven out GUI system there is on the planet, right? And the fact that you can leverage things that billions of people have used, so that was my number one thing, right? Another one, which was huge, and actually I got to thank Ryan Wells for this, because I was chit-chatting with him, and he's like, and the fact that there's no external libraries needed, of course, other than the AutoHotkey. And I'm like, that is enormous, right? Because if you've ever done stuff like in Python, and you got to get these different libraries, and sometimes they're kind of hard to install and find, and they're different, even bite size, depending on what you're doing, it can be problematic. So I thought that was a huge, really big benefit.
Yeah, versioning and I've not done enough in Python to really know what's a pain and what's not. But one of the things that stopped me when I was looking at it at one point was the amount of stuff that I needed to include to get the functionality. And as you said yourself, sure enough, some of the functionality is included with Windows, and if we at any point in the future move away from Windows 10 or whatever Microsoft decides, who knows? But it's so far into the future that you just have access to it. It works. It's part of the system files in Windows. So it is, as you said yourself, it has so many years. It's so proven. There's not really anything where you need to reach out to developers or anything like that because, hey, this part here doesn't work or anything like that, because it has so many years under its hood. So yeah, that has been ironed out for the most part.
Yep. And then the next one, and maybe you can help me with this, Jackie, because I wasn't quite sure, but because is Windows, is it developed in C, C#? I don't recall.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it per se, because I think it has been probably written in multiple things over time.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't remember the original core. I do know that C# is a Microsoft development, so that has probably been a thing at one point, but I think C would be my best bet.
Yeah, and so, and this is just getting something I already said, but AutoHotkey is, personally, I think it's one of the simplest languages you can pick up, right? It's so intuitive. And yet, you know, so if you were doing this in Windows, you'd probably be programming in something like C, and it's not, I'm not gonna say it's a nightmare, but like it's a bit of a learning curve, to put it mildly. And so if you're trying to create a GUI, do you really want to be spending all this time learning the whole new software, you know, that's going to take you a long time, versus with AutoHotkey, you know, you can be learning it in a day, and you can do stuff in one line that stuff in C would take 30 or something, right? It's crazy.
One of the things that AutoHotkey has been said to have that none of the others had, and I'm not, when I say none of the others, I cannot speak for all of them,
sure,
by far, but the help file, the way that it's structured, it is a lot of information summed down to one thing. I remember we made a podcast some time ago where we were trying to find the right command to do a swipe on an Android phone. And because we just had Google and we kept going into Stack Overflow answers, and they were all over the place. There were no clear-cut way for us, at least, without knowing that, and to just look in one place and get the answer. And that's one of the things that AutoHotkey can do, is it has an tremendously well-structured documentation, and it's in one place, and it's within reason in one version. There's no AutoHotkey 1.3 documentation and AutoHotkey 1.8 and AutoHotkey 2.9 and 3.1, and no, it's for the most part AutoHotkey, and it's pretty straightforward. Yep. The one that you have installed comes with documentation has what you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The other thing I'd throw on top of it is not only everything you just said, but we also, for the most part, have one forum that you go to, and with some of the, to me, the most helpful people on the planet, right, that are there, that in the Discord, there are people out there that are just so helpful and willing to help people for nothing, right, or maybe for a little money, but or you give them a little tip or something. But
I totally agree. It's kind of weird to be glad that the community is not that spread out. It is in Stack Overflow, it is in Reddit, it has more than one forum, but all of them have the main Reddit, the main forum, the main chat, all of those things that kind of makes it easy when you're new to know where to go. So there's no Russian URL you need to know to learn AutoHotkey. No, it's all on autohotkey.com, right? It's centered in one place. It's not like Yeah, we have that forum and that forum and that forum, depending on what you need to know.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, sure. That is a good thing.
Yeah. The other one, which is just, and maybe this isn't a huge definer, but this everything's free, right? All the AutoHotkey stuff, the software is free. So, which is the case, I think, a lot of the times, right? But it's just good to point out that.
Yeah, it's it's been a topic for discussion quite a few times, right? That the license that AutoHotkey comes with might or might not limit how you can use it. But it's also been pointed out quite a few times that unless you're modifying AutoHotkey, the binaries themselves, that it isn't an issue. Because all of what's AutoHotkey does is it's an interpreter. So if you give the interpreter to someone unchanged, it comes with licensing and all that stuff intact. So you can write whatever script or program or automation or GUI or whatever you want to. It does not get impeded by the license that makes it need to be free. So you have access to the tool for free, but you can write and do whatever or try whatever you want for the stuff that you make. So yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, Jackie, you did a much better job explaining my little bullet point, because you're spot on, right? The fact that I can go, in this case, create GUIs or whatever with AutoHotkey, and then later sell that's perfectly fine, right? And in some other languages, that's not. You can develop in it and do what you want for yourself, but you can't sell things. So it is great to be able to do that. We already discussed this one a bit, but I'd say that the GUIs are actually, pretty fast. They're not like a gaming, it's not AutoHotkey's not for necessarily creating games, but they get drawn, fairly fast, and they're familiar. Again, I said this to billions of people, right? The fact, in some creative people might not like it, but the fact that people will look at something and not get caught up in the GUI itself, the GUI itself doesn't take things away, because people instantly just start looking at what the thing does, not the actual, software, right? Which is what, as a programmer, you don't want that. You don't want people getting hung up on necessarily, look how cool this is, right? It's does it work, and how do I do what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, AutoHotkey's built-in GUIs, which this is about, is off the bat fairly clean, right? There's no extravaganza things going on. You can add quite a bit of that if you truly want to, but straight up you get that clean interface that people recognize from younger phone hungry people might not recognize it as much as older people does, but still it's simple. It has the needed space around text. It has a good contrast. It has well-defined elements. Just recently, we had a tool at work where it was a website interface, and there was a lot of text, a lot of white space, but a lot of text. And I knew what this stuff did, but I was looking at it because I was supposed to teach others how to use it. And one word wasn't different than any other word, but some of the words were headings for tabs, other words were links. But because they removed all formatting, you couldn't see when a word was a link and when it wasn't a link. You couldn't see if it was the heading or if it was the title of an entry or if it was a tab, or it was just, to me, it's like, really, you could have done a lot better with this user-friendly UI, right? Yeah. Whereas with the AutoHotkey GUIs, all of those things are well defined, right, and pretty straightforward.
So, yeah, and someone who does this for a living would view them often as restrictive, but for those of us that just want to get something done quickly, it's amazing. And that was actually going to add to what you were saying, Jackie, is the list views, tree views, radio button checkboxes, and some other stuff. They are so powerful that you can do so much with them, and yet they're so easy in AutoHotkey. It's mind-boggling, like why you would pick up. Because when I was going to that Python meetup where I was learning Python, and I was talking to people, and at the time I was trying to learn GUIs, and I was trying to learn them in Python, and so I would talk to people. There were about 60 people that regularly attended these meetups, and I'd go up to them and I asked at least, I'd say 15 to 20 people, hey, I'm doing this in the GUI. They're like, oh, I've been working with Python for 10 years, but I don't do GUIs. And it was really funny to me that like virtually everyone I talked to, not one of them created GUIs. And that's what dawned on me. That was when, before, I think I've told you this before, I thought, this is years ago, I tried doing GUIs in AutoHotkey, and then they were hard, and I'm like, oh, okay, AutoHotkey is great, but it just sucks at GUIs. And it was after talking to the people at the Python meetups that I realized GUIs are hard. It's not AutoHotkey that did a poor job on GUIs. It's just that GUIs are hard, right? The concepts are just, they're not linear, right? It's a lot of, you got a lot more going on. And so I became much more forgiving of AutoHotkey. And then I met Maestriath, and he was creating GUIs like, it's ludicrous how fast he can create GUIs and do stuff. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
The let's see, the last one, which well, two. One was because this isn't really, this is about the course, but I'll throw them out here anyway. One is both Isaiah and I have been working with AutoHotkey for over 10 years, and there's a money back guarantee. So even though everything on Udemy has a money back guarantee, if we were just talking about, we should stress it. So anyway, those were in my list. I wasn't, again, not trying to push the course necessarily, other than like, hey, if you're interested in GUIs, this is a great. It's going to be, Jackie, it's, I don't want to feel like I'm boasting, but I think this could really, I hope, expose AutoHotkey to a lot more people and kind of at least have a chance for AutoHotkey to get a little more notice, amongst people. I'm not trying to be overly bold there, but it's just, people don't get into stuff, and it's not that well known of a language, and hopefully something like this can help a lot of people start actually, creating GUIs with AutoHotkey.
Yeah, I'd say even though it's years ago that I made it, it's still one of the most popular posts on my website, and it doesn't mention anything about AutoHotkey in its title or in the first paragraph or in. Right. I don't even know when the first mention of AutoHotkey actually happens in that article, but a lot of people have come there, and a lot of them came from AutoHotkey, but it still was quite a popular one. And it was just about how easy it was to make a small piece of functionality with a GUI and AutoHotkey. Yeah. Right? It is what people see. It's the GUI. Yeah. So sure enough, it can probably give new users, new eyes, newcomers into the community. Sure. Yeah, just so people, if you haven't heard this, so this is, I don't know, boy, I can't keep track of things anymore. I'm trying to think of how many years ago, but I had, Jackie, I didn't know it at the time, but he was helping me a lot on the forum. And then I happened to notice in his signature that he had a website. And so I went to the website. This is before him and I ever directly exchanged the email or anything. And I went to the website, and I signed up for his newsletter kind of thing. And I went through I read the thing and created a beautiful GUI based on what he had done. But that was what started. Then I saw his email, and so I wrote him a thank you, note. But that was, I don't know, what do you think, 6 years ago, roughly? I don't know. It was probably, yeah. But yeah, anyway, it was just funny that is, that was one of the first things on your site that I had worked through, read and worked through, of like, oh, I'm gonna play with this because I've never done GUIs, and it was easy, right? You did it very simple. And I didn't understand it. I understood the code, but it was the concepts and how you did them was interesting. Yeah, and a lot of people, even new users to AutoHotkey, they love being able to do something with a GUI, right? very simple. Give me an input field, an edit field, whatever, and a button to paste it, or give me 5 fields where I can put different values and 5 buttons. It really ranges very far to people using AutoHotkey GUIs for making a small game or even a large game for that matter. I've seen almost anything made, not anything made, but quite a lot of things have been made using GUIs, from games all the way down to a small GUI that pops up when you click a hotkey so that you can drag a file to it and it will put it into clipboard. It was a very small thing I saw at one point, but it's interesting, just a small square.
Yeah.
To crosshairs and all kinds of different things people have used GUIs for, right?
Yeah, I'd even say, you know, I think quick access pop-up is a really good example of a solid designed GUI with AutoHotkey. Incorporates a lot of different functionality of it. And then, see, that's where, to me, I've stayed away. Like I said, I haven't really done a lot with GUIs. And I'll use an input box. And sometimes I'll use 2 input boxes in a row instead of creating a GUI, which I can do with the different edit fields on it. But now, after working through this course, I'm like, it is so much. It's just really easy when, you know, that's in you know, we discussed earlier, the AutoHotkey, both the help and the forum are amazing. But here's what they don't have. This is what at least our course does too, is gives you a clear process, you know, of here, start here and work through each one of these things, because it's just a mayhem, and you're like, well, just go, you know, work on what you need. But you know, it's just it's hard to me hard to learn that way. I want a clear kind of path.
Yeah, I remember from back in the day when AutoHotkey had a tutorial. I still believe it has a tutorial, and
It does.
only been reworked a few times in all of AutoHotkey years. But there are simply things where you almost need a tutorial, and maybe some of the most popular posts in the community has been tutorials on how to do COM, how to work with DLL call, how to do something in Excel, so tutorials with step-by-step instructions where you build on top of what you just learned really does help you learn the thing, and that is missing for GUIs, or was missing for GUIs. So yeah, I think it's a great addition.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, this is an intro to GUIs. We do cover, I think all the different types, but it's not a, you know, more advanced stuff with creating resizable GUIs, and I mean, there's so much you can do with them, or using objects to help build your list view, which I had thought about us putting that in there, but you know, I think we'll make another course. But yeah, anyway, I hope everyone likes it. And always go to the-automator.com, and then there's a page called, I think, Learn AutoHotkey or courses, and we have coupon codes there, so you can always get a discounted code for Udemy. So go there and don't pay the full price ever. So please go there, save money.
Yeah, it's a great idea and great thing for the community, because they will actually, or at least some of them, be listening to this, right? And they will be the ones that you talk to, so they will have access to the the discount. Yeah, that's great.
Awesome, man. It's good chatting with you.
Absolutely, Joe.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye.